And there was a lot of back and forth in the paper from, I don't remember who all of the parties were, but it was quite a scandal. Given that that's my only history on cost containment in the Camas Fire Department, I'm doubly concerned. Let me see what, and I'm putting words in Councilmember Shoemaker's mouth, but I also am very concerned about this not being a one-time thing, but rather an ongoing suck on our budget. Just some concerns.
I kind of like to hear from Rod Morris, because you were the person that wanted to table this issue to have this discussion. So if we could have more of your concerns.
Let Molly run real quick, and then I'm not
That's fine.
I knew
You were
Rod
saving the best for last. Go ahead, Molly.
No, I'm actually trying to peer through this window to get to the financial details that's sort of colored with some of our past history with this issue. And so it's very difficult for me to separate those two out, tease them apart, so to speak. But can you refresh my memory, how long have we had 24-hour coverage? Because I know when we had the controversy with Camas, there was a time when Camas provided emergency medical services, ambulance, totally from Camas locations. And all of those, I'm assuming, all those calls fell within normal level of service with regards to time to get to the scene and transport time, subsequent transport time. So realistically, to me, that's what the voters were voting for, is they weren't voting necessarily for 24/7, 365. What they were voting for is to say, when I call 911 with a medical emergency, I want a qualified person there within the time frame, and if I have to go to the hospital, I want a competent staff to transport me there and get me there in good shape. So I know that when we first instigated the discussions and came to an agreement that we would have an ambulance in Washougal, for quite a long time, it was only peak hours. And I never heard any complaints from any citizens that that was less than adequate. And I still wonder if maybe that is not a more feasible way to go, especially it's difficult for me to swallow that a two-man staff, well, 24/7, 365 is just shy of $1 million a year to run. That's a lot of money.
Drive
So-
a Cadillac.
Yeah, and I would begrudgingly I would begrudgingly vote for the 150 this year because we've got to do something. We do have contractual obligations, but certainly not in subsequent years to continue to feed this fire-breathing dragon that I mean, it is kind of in a way, and it's not just a case, it's not that I have total distrust for Camas, it's a case that we're looking at all across Clark County when I've talked to fire commissioners in other parts of the counties, fire and medical costs. And how do we wrap our arms around that in an era of declining revenues? And so there's some real issues here that we're gonna have to discuss, but.
Yeah, that's why I think regardless what we do in the budget or don't do in the budget, I've talked about this whole, for probably the first time since the system was created back in the 70s, it's probably time to revisit from all three jurisdictions and look hard and fast at it more than just the quarterly meetings and that type of stuff. I believe Molly, the changes started happening sometime in 2008 when the new agreement was put together. And there were some months that it was just 12 hours or short of full shifts.
Yeah, it started in February, I believe, and that was from February to July.
Of '08.
Of '08.
And then they went to 24-hour.
Of
Of
09.
'09. And then from that point, it's been 24/7 since then, so a year and a half.
In regard to what went on the voting, I know that was one of the things that we pulled out originally, which I think good idea of Dave's would take a photocopy of everything that we put out there and what did we actually say when we went out. And some of the materials we put forth on the factual stuff talked about an ambulance stationed in Washington 24 hours with ALS provisions, all that type of stuff in addition to what the levy also pays for in regards to making sure that we've always got 2 firefighters on hand. So, I guess the debate on how much we're on the hook with that, probably gets into how much do people actually read those. I hope they read them a lot, because we're trying to give them as much factual information as we can in order to provide the best information for them to vote, so.
Mayor Guard.
Oh, this can't be
I wrote
good.
these down.
This can't be good.
What happens, and did Lloyd give you any indication that they've discussed this with them? Because I don't want to be the only player here supplementing their budget, when, in fact, that ambulance parked out here becomes an
Subsidized.
issue that's a much nicer situation for ECFR as well. So, did they give you any
Absolutely.
indication they've talked to them?
Not that I recall.
Nothing specific.
I think, the couple of things that they pointed out in regards to ECFR is, one, this year is also, on top of everything else, is when ECFR is pulling back on their contract that they had with Camus to provide the additional $500,000 a year over and above what they paid through their levy. And I know it was mentioned that, I don't remember when, whether it was the latest one or 2 ambulances ago, that was purchased with funds from ECFR as well that went into the system. But in regards to this, other than my suggestion that, it's probably a good time for us all to get together to talk about the entire system funding, where it is, everything else. I don't recall that there was any discussion or any information that was volunteered that we're at the table with East County and discussing the same thing.
Let me preface a couple things. One is when I said Mr. Mayor, it's out of due respect because I know you guys feel passionate about this, that it needs to happen, and that's why I'm just being respectful.
Thank you.
Secondarily, the system we're running here is a Cadillac, and where we evolved, and I know that every organization needs to move forward, but they started out running an ambulance from Camas and would call a volunteer to drive, EMT to drive the ambulance. And we've now proceeded to be 2 paramedics on the ambulance, and sometimes that paramedic is a captain paramedic, so firefighter paramedic. So they're paying the largest amount that could possibly be written into this situation. And I understand that they're fighting for this, their union fights for it. I'm just saying that's where we've evolved to.
Yeah.
I was told once that Camus's budget was $150,000 short when they discovered we had $150,000 to send. Now, that you guys kind of corrected because the